Hey everybody, welcome back to X's for Show, your premier media response show, where today we're going to be covering I Am Celine Dion. Super stoked. You can check the show out at X's for Show. As for me, I'm Nico Action, NICOACTION on all your socials.
I am TK Accidental. Oh no, I changed it. TK Elemental, sorry.
Well, I am still your producer, Kevo Really. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and comment to let us know what you want us to cover in the future. But not like Nico said, we are covering the woman, the documentary, the voice, Celine herself.
You know, we all kind of talk about things we want to cover in our day-to-day, and like TK, when you brought this to the table, I think you were maybe afraid of getting a little bit of fine, but what you got was an enthusiastic fuck yeah, man, let's talk about how cool Celine Dion is.
I actually was not afraid. This was really kind of out. This was like we could do this. I really, what I had regretted, what I mentioned in the chat was that I wish I had thought to do the Chromatica documentary, but I actually am glad we didn't do that because it's fun. It's a great watch, but it is just kind of a concert, and I wouldn't want to review the concert that everybody else was going to watch or not watch anyway. Gaga does have a documentary like the Attack of the 5'2" Woman or something, and that might have been cool at one point, but it just gave me the idea. It was something that like a lot of people were talking about and watching, and I was like, oh, I would love to talk about and watch some music stuff, some diva stuff, some icon stuff, and it just so happened that this was coming, and I thought it would be really fun. I mean, not fun because it's upsetting, but fun celebrating Celine.
I'm somebody who suffers from, like whatever random medical stuff, and not like suffers from, I guess, so much as like coexists with. And I'm, very lucky that I'm in a very healthy bracket. So like, it's really more about supporting other people and seeing somebody as brave as Celine chose to be here. And I love that we're just parasociating her and we're just like Celine, because, yeah.
She's anonymous. So yeah.
Miss Dion.
Right?
Excuse me, Miss Dion.
I am so glad we watched this, but I want to open this up to a couple of questions to get us rolling. Number one, what was the first Celine song you remember? For me, I think it is a very clear memory of Power of Love. That's like the one that like sticks in my memory as like the song that I first interacted with as a kid. How about you guys?
It's gonna be I'm Everything I Am Because You Love Me. And because it's not her singing all by myself on the Clueless soundtrack, right?
No, I think that's Eric Carmen proper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, it's probably Because You Loved Me, which was just like a song that was in the air a lot right around the time that I was really like discovering what would be my taste in music, not just like what my sisters were listening to who were older and cooler than I was, but really figuring out my stuff. And I will say, like, at the time, for years, I really kind of wrestled with thinking Celine was really corny, but also not being able really to deny that the songs were very powerful. And I think it really took becoming an adult and sort of no longer giving fucks about impressions or, what it would mean to be a teen boy who likes like just a total diva to really understand that she has always just been so incredible.
Oh, I love that. Kevo, did you have a similar experience? Do you go back to like that 95-ish era for falling into you, or are you a little bit further back? Maybe Celine Dion, maybe a little Where Does My Heart Beat Now? What's your sound?
I want to say what we have in the mix, which I'm sure soon you'll be able to go and find over at Nico Action's awesome music channels. It's All Coming Back to Me Now is certainly one that sticks out in my brain. And, it is from an era where we were starting to see the death of those sort of story ballads that would go on for 12 minutes.
It's like 7 minutes and 37 seconds. It really, really is.
that's really long. And, My Heart Will Go On, obviously a classic, obviously a Jugglonopter, but like that one was attached to something, so that made sense. It's All Coming Back to Me Now was like its own thing. And so, yeah, that one definitely is one that I always think of for Celine.
So then my question is, what is your Celine song? Like, what is the one you go to that, like, when you like sing in the shower? I've referenced it a few times, but it's If You Ask Me To. For me, it's when it's like right in my heart. But like, I also want to give a big shout out to A New Day Has Come, Taking Chances, and I Drove All Night, which all kind of fit into a very specific era of me appreciating her as an adult. I was in BMG Music Club, thank you. So I did, in fact, have Design of the Decade. No, that's Design of the Decade was Janet. Whatever Celine's was, A Decade of Dion, I don't know. But it's all in the same shade of excellent, looking back at a decade of great songs. TK, what is your Celine song?
I mean, it's All Coming Back to Me Now.
Okay.
That is the one that I go to because
I give
that is.
four, you give one. Okay.
Well, no, I wasn't done because that is sort of Celine 101. I was going to also suggest both That's the Way It Is and Power of Love.
Oh, That's the Way It Is.
And actually, the fact of the matter is, it's probably Power of Love that is my first Celine song, but it's because of the Pure Moods or the World's Best Love Songs infomercial that would come on late at night, because that's more like 93, I think, 94.
That one is 90. Power of Love is 93 because I think it's on the follow-up to Celine Dion. I did a lot of discography mining for this episode.
Well, and I'm specifically talking about that infomercial where the guy's like, imagine having the greatest love songs of all time at your fingertips. And then it just bursts into, 'cause I'm your lady. Anyway, I just remember that so distinctly. So that's probably really my first Celine song. But yeah, That's the Way It Is or Power of Love for ones that, if I'm not, being totally honest and picking the basic bitch answer, which is It's All Coming Back to Me Now.
Kevo, in case we get cut off from the insane raging storm going on outside that does in fact sound like the It's All Coming Back to Me Now music video, what is your Celine?
I am intrigued that I don't think mine that I wanted to make sure I had the name of correctly came up. To Love You More.
Oh, to Love You More is
a good one.
So let's just say number one, To Love You More was originally the Japanese bonus track on.
Hey, Kyle.
Hey, Kyle.
Hey,
Well,
Kyle.
You were just in time. It's so great to have you here, Kyle.
Let us
friend
know
of the
what your Celine
pod.
song is.
Right, you have to let us know how you feel about Celine Dion. Weigh in on this. But so To Love You More was originally the Japanese bonus track on Falling Into You. So people used to go crazy to get that. It was like a holy grail track. And it was so popular as an international bonus track that it's a regular track on Let's Talk About Love. And, that violin solo between that and My Heart Will Go On. Like, I feel like every violinist has played those two Celine Dion songs. There's a violinist whose violin is right there in their closet right there. So, To Love You More is an excellent piece of music, and I guess I wasn't until this episode that I realized what a gigantic Celine Dion fan I have been at different points in my lifetime. Anyway, so then, final question. Kevo, I don't know if you have the art ready?
Yes.
But there have been 3 pretty significant drag impressions of Celine Dion. Number one, Kevin McHale did an incredible job in Secret Celebrity Drag Race. With Secret Celebrity Drag Race had the worst snatch game of all time, but the best roast of all time. So it's really interesting. But here's Kevin McHale as a very specific look of Celine Dion's. Not very funny, not very good. We also had none other than Canada's very own answer to RuPaul, yikes, Brooklyn Heights, as Celine Dion in Miss Vanjie's season 11 of Drag Race.
Flop.
And then, of course, we have the most famous drag impersonation of Celine Dion ever, and a gas tire, the most incredible singer in the world. This was something that was so popular and so famous before like memery and the ability to just go on YouTube. Like, I'm serious. People lost talk show bookings because YouTube made it too easy to rewatch the fucking thing, so she didn't have to go on Rosie O'Donnell for you to catch it, right? Koosh! But so I specifically think if I have to vote for one of them, I think I learned more about doing a quality impersonation of a caricature. Like, I owe so much of my Lucy LaDuca to On a Gas Tire, and this impersonation of Celine Dion, which is silly, over the top, and absolutely camp. But the veritas, the kindness in the performance, the love for who this brilliant opera singer channeling an opera singer is, it's just incredible.
I really agree with you. And I was reflecting on this when I was kind of thinking about the fact that I used to kind of look down on Celine and think she was really corny. Like, and I thought about this, and I'm forgetting the name of the comedian, but the Mad TV player who would always do Whitney Houston.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God. And then she had that incredible run on all of those VH1 Best Blank Ever shows.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. Yes.
And in both cases, I feel...
Yes.
Thank you. In both cases, I feel like... Actually, I feel like Deborah Wilson's impression is a little bit harsher because it is identifying some real action in Whitney's life that is worth discussing. But I mean, for one thing, she had such an amazing voice and would do such a good vocal, like, singing impression of Whitney Houston. But then, like, her movements when she would do some of the songs, like where she would just like crouch down and then shoot back up, there was so much that was a really loving tribute. And in both cases, I feel like being an adolescent who saw these things, you really kind of thought that you were in on a little bit of cruelty and a little bit of like, I think this person is really cheesy. So seeing this impression of them and I'm laughing at it kind of indicates to me that I'm on the right track and that they are cheesy and that we're making fun of them and that it's okay. It's okay that we're making fun of them because they deserve to be made fun of. And part of like my adult journey has been realizing, one, that I just love Celine Dion. I don't think she's the least bit cheesy. I would aspire to 1/1000th of her talent, but also that the impressions were really pretty loving and were not meant to be like actively making fun of these people and putting them down, but really taking something about them and finding the comedy, you know, just finding comedy in absurdity and camp and being over the top, things that she already was, like things that she does now, the way that she will sometimes in interviews just break into song that are just really campy and silly and funny. Like, I feel like Anna Gasteyer got really early on what was charming about Celine and what you could laugh about with her. And, you know, the fact that it's her proclaiming I'm the greatest singer in the world actually is funny because she actually is. So, like, she's actually just one of the greatest talents of all time. So, like, it's not really a joke about how somebody who is pathetic thinks they're the greatest singer in the world. It's a joke about how the greatest singer in the world knows, and that can sometimes just be funny because it's absurd to live in a world like that.
It's not Lindsay Lohan bragging about having the greatest jeggings brand of all time.
Yes.
And like, I better understand now as an adult that part of the impression when someone would be singing in front of her and she would start singing with them. It's because she has some kind of ADHD where she really is. All those clips where she just bursts into song. Nico, did you feel seen? Because
oh my God.
The way that she just would scat things. No, that's just she like our man up there, I think just thinks she lives in a musical. And that is when you are that much of a music person and you are that much of a that much living through your voice as your instrument. This makes that very clear that she has that sense of so much of her identity is tied up in her voice.
And she does just want to sing. Like the vibe that you get from looking at her career and then from watching this movie is she does just want to burst into song.
I completely agree. It was something that like I found really magical when she was talking about, like I want to be like one of those cool rock guys and like drink and like do drugs and then like wake up and be like and like just the way she is so fucking funny. Like that was the thing that I found really charming. Like I very famously love Mariah Carey way too much. But like one of the things is I know that like if she did a documentary like this, a lot of people would be rooting for the disease. And it's because she doesn't always present as likable. What I found interesting is at the cost of not seeming fabulous, Celine Dion was willing to be honest, which is so different than like in a show where like a person is like, I'm gonna be honest, this is me without makeup, and you're like, okay, that's you without 2 layers of makeup, but you still have the bottom 3 on. I honestly felt, to kind of transition a little bit into the documentary, I felt one of the greatest talents this documentary had, because there were times that I maybe thought it wasn't the most documentary-ish. It felt a little bit like Christina Aguilera backstage at the strip launch. But the willingness to make Celine look humble, plain, aged poorly. It was a really honest choice, and I think it set the tone off for this documentary really powerfully.
This is the really interesting thing. This is a documentarian who she was in the program that I was at NYU. I know who she studied under, and I've seen some of her other documentaries, and she did one of my favorites of the last 10 years, which was about the Slender Man murders, the 2 girls who killed their friend because they thought the Slender Man was telling them to do it. Like, she's done some really like traditional by the rules documentaries.
We're not just talking Shudder.
Yeah. Well, and this really felt like immediately you kind of saw that this would not have gotten made without a lot of say-so from Celine and her camp. And I don't just mean the kind of say-so where it's like, we're not going to sue you, but like they were really given probably a lot of control over what would be filmed and what would be shown. And I ultimately, rather than being like, wow, her documentarian's eye for picking up these shots and wanting to show this, that didn't really click to me so much as Celine was really brave for being this honest, like allowing herself to be seen this honestly. And it is both that she chose to be shown without makeup, and I don't think she has aged poorly, but I think she is somebody who goes onto her stage show and goes onto a red carpet completely beat, like completely made up we saw her warehouse full of gowns, so like she always looks incredible. We're gonna talk about it, I know,
you fucking god,
but she I think
sentence.
I think she could walk out tomorrow looking insanely gorgeous if she chose to. So the fact that she chose to do a lot of the interview segments completely without any makeup on and looking her actual age and having no assistance in giving that look was the second most brave thing, after allowing the cameras to be present and allowing the shots of her going through a crisis of stiff person syndrome to be shown, because that is a regular person doing that would be insanely brave. Somebody whose entire life is their image doing that is pretty incredible.
And when you were saying she looks her age but beautiful, I thought Bowie. I immediately thought Bowie.
Yeah.
And Cyborg, I see your question. Date night for me would be Mariah Carey. That's my queen. Love her to death. Really appreciate your question there. But you'd win with any of those ladies. But I thought about like Bowie and how beautifully he aged. Bowie! And one of the places that this documentary made me go was the sort of fragmented image we're getting of who she is through this documentary lens. Something I remember pretty vividly was during my peak Entertainment Weekly boy days, was just how that motherfucking backward tuxedo changed everything for everyone for the rest of time, and just what a big deal it was. And so I'm glad that you brought up the warehouse, because as we're watching this, Kevo and I are just kind of relaxing and we're watching and we're having a great time, and then Kevo just loudly goes, "This is one person."
So we are big Disney people. We worked there. We still love it there. So we've gone on tours of backstage areas where they show you like where they put all of their holiday things in storage. And it's this warehouse, and there's all these buckets, and there's these rows and bags of things. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, yeah, that's like a storage for a thing like that. This is one woman. This is one woman's stuff. But like a point that she makes that I think is really so excellent and important is because of the type of icon that she is, when she wears something literally just once, where is she going to wear that again? To the store? She can't wear that to any regular party or anything. Like when she wears something, it makes a statement because of who she is. It's not a normal thing, but she's also not just going to like junk it. These things are important to her. She cares about this. Seeing her upbringing and learning about, even for the small part that they talk about in this, I get that. She clearly is a very warm, sentimental, nostalgic person.
13 siblings and those eyebrows.
And it's really funny because she's clearly sentimental. Like she talks about stuff that she has in there that is her children's stuff that she, wants to keep. But like there are one of a kind pieces of couture in there that she wore, the backwards tuxedo being like a fantastic example. It's more than just her personal interest in it. One day it will go in a museum. Like it's important to save it for the history of culture, for the history of the documentation of this time. And
there was a point where I felt like she almost wanted to say it, but it would be rude for her to say, this is going to go in my own museum someday. But yes, is the case. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it will go in her museum, and like it will be in a greater pop cultural content. A lot of this stuff will be important for a greater pop cultural. Yeah. Yes, exactly. And that's true for other people too. And I'm sure a lot of people archive their stuff. I'm sure Madonna archives her stuff. I imagine there is some archive of Britney stuff, although I have to imagine it's also probably was not handled the best.
I have to imagine that Britney's archive was submitted for jury evidence, so I probably think it is archived pretty well.
Yeah.
It's a locker. It's an evidence locker.
But I think it's not a bad thing. It also takes me to one of the big, I don't want to say questions I had about this documentary, but like something that came up for me. Celine Dion is really so brave for having, like I said, for having talked about stiff person syndrome, for showing us what it's like to have a seizure and letting it be one unbroken shot that is basically the last 15 minutes of the film. Just the camera is right there and there's no cuts. There's no justification. There is a real sense of this might be the end of her life as Celine Dion, the celebrity. She might never sing again. Her life could be really difficult and horrible from here on out. What is never mentioned is the fact that Celine Dion has close to $1 billion. And while I'm not saying this in like she should be taken to task for this, because it does not matter how much money you have, any kind of disease or disorder is difficult to live with. There is still a really big degree, and this is why this is kind of not a I was saying to Nico, this is like a vibe-umentary. This is like very much, what's the vibe of Celine Dion's life? And I love that. I'm here for the vibes. I wanted to experience the vibes of Celine, but like a real documentarian's duty at a certain point becomes about looking at the fact that this is horrible for Celine Dion, who has $1 billion and some of the best medical care money can buy to deal with it. And if anybody is going to get the treatment to be able to sing again, it is Celine Dion. And if that never happens, that is heartbreak to her. That is heartbreak to people that love her. But she will still be comfortable in an enormous house with a staff, knowing her sons are taken care of, having food to eat every day, having all of the comforts that she needs. And there are people that live with this syndrome who have nothing, and who live with worse syndromes who have nothing. And that point is just a little bit missing. And that can be the tough thing. Because again, it's not necessarily Celine Dion's job to make that point. She's clearly humble. She clearly gives back. But it's an awkward thing because there is just so much luxury in this harrowing situation. And I do think about, like Nico, I have certain medical conditions and certain things that I was born with, and sometimes they are very difficult, but I grew up incredibly privileged, and I shudder to think what my life would have been like to exist with some of these things and not have financial stability, let alone like extreme financial luxury.
And that was a comment I made as soon as this started. I said out loud, wow, but imagine what it's like for somebody who isn't Celine Dion, because she makes it look so crazy. Because at one point, one of her physical therapists says to her, well, think about where you were 2 years ago, to which I then responded with, and now you're getting physical therapy in the Palace of Versailles, because that's what it looks like. It looks like my favorite rooms at the Met. And, at one point, there's Gautier throw pillows in one of the scenes while she's working with her statement crafters. And none of this is to mock anything, because one of the things we should remember is Celine Dion doesn't just sell tickets. Celine Dion sells tickets that employ the people at the arena. Celine Dion doesn't just sell t-shirts. Celine Dion sells t-shirts that employ people in the chain of making t-shirts. Like, a lot of these people wind up feeling a little bit of responsibility for the industry that they ultimately personally generate. Individuals look to these people for their financial security. And so I do understand that it's sort of like she said, I can't just not feel like going into work that night. If I cancel a show, 30,000 people are going to be devastated. And there really is a trade, but I do think that part of the problem becomes you can't make a documentary about Celine Dion's struggle with stiff person syndrome genuinely without making some part documentary about stiff person syndrome, and I don't feel that came across here. Yeah. But then again, the name of this was I Am Celine Dion, and we did get that tour of her amazing facility, which I really enjoyed, and certainly to come back to her fashion anytime we're ready. But I do just want to say, like, the song selection in this was bizarre. I loved hearing Chattanooga Choo Choo in French, maybe. But this was the first time I ever said, wow, she does a lot of covers. Because they play All By Myself, they play River Deep Mountain High. And I then thought about her When I Fall in Love cover. And Josh Groban have half the same songs.
The entire thing, it seemed like, was based on her loving the song Who I Am by Win Sparks, and the I Am that is I Am Celine Dion, I think, is actually a reference to that, to the fact that she loves and sings this song Who I Am at the end of the movie, or Who Am I is the song, and the answer is I Am Celine Dion, which is beautiful. I mean, it's a beautiful moment. And I think I would not have the same question, but for the fact that the film chose maybe not the selection I would have expected of songs to feature. Although I will say, because this would go high up on my list too. I think Ashes is such a good song.
Ashes? What is Ashes?
What is Ashes, and where could I hear it? It's definitely not playing in the background right now. I think Ashes is a fantastic song, and I love this cover by Nico Action, which you can hear by going to Nico Action Music on SoundCloud. I thought it was that was one of those choices that made me think that Ryan Reynolds is such a smart producer. And Celine, again, like, she's funny. She's in on the joke the entire time, because it could just be a song from like The Lake House Part 2. You know what I mean? Like, it could, any romantic film, at best romantic comedy, could have commissioned this song. And yet it works for Deadpool 2 because Deadpool 2 makes it work. And then Celine comes in and makes it work as well for all of the promotion in the music video. So I was really happy that it got some music feature time, and that the joke of you need to dial it down to 5 and Celine saying this thing only goes to 11, I thought was like a really, like, that's the thing, like, that's the humor that, like, I thought I was laughing at her when I was 12 and thought she was corny, but in fact Anna Gasteyer could see that she only goes to 11 and was tributing to that, and never was it anything even the least bit mean-spirited.
I agree. I think the thing that made it, I guess, a little bit hard is, like, I am a vocalist. I'm probably a vocalist above an instrumentalist. There's just something about being able to sing that feels like different than any other form of language. And as a vocalist, hearing her voice sound the way it sounded sort of broke my heart. We all sort of do things that artificially age us faster than we'd like. And for some vocalists, like Mariah Carey, you are willing to blow that voice out in the studio to make it sound perfect. And then whether or not the note live is the same, that's fine. But Celine Dion, she really clearly, like, could just naturally belt so big. And to know that it isn't that she abused her voice for 30 years, it's that she has this condition that's taken her voice from her, is one of those situations where we think about the fact that Cher wouldn't retire, Barbra Streisand wouldn't retire. But then think about Shania Twain or Celine Dion, both of whom Canadian chanteuses who wound up with serious illnesses that took them off the stage. So it's a tough balancing act, I think, to think about, would it be better if she just sang until it was Tony Bennett on those Lady Gaga tracks? I would love to have heard her go that far, but what would society have said?
Well, I think would have is what will they say? I don't think we're there yet.
I think no matter what, her voice is going to sound different. I think no matter what, this will not be an unchanged vocal experience that just ages. No matter what, when she comes back from this, we will always grade her with a memory of what she was able to recover. And it's always going to change the way we talk about it in a very positive way, I think.
The world is what you mean. Yeah. I know what you're saying. I
get that. I don't think that's untrue. I don't know. It was a really interesting part of the documentary. And again, like, I'm frustrated by the documentary, not by Celine, because I felt like she was kind of giving them gold. But like a big part of it, and I thought about you the whole time, because I was thinking about this, like, she sings in parts of it after fully having stiff person syndrome and it affecting her vocal cords, and she still sounds incredibly beautiful. Like, to me, I'm like, you're okay, whatever, you're still better than 99% of the vocalists out there, but she knows that she's not where she was, and you can tell that she's just not, it's just not the same. And I think when you get to her singing Who Am I, it's a moment of her finding the joy in singing, because she does talk about that too. She talks about how, like, for her, she just wants to sing. Like, she just, all the time she wants to sing. It leads her where she wants to go, and she just wants to be singing. But then you do see that she has this other side to herself that knows that she is the greatest singer in the world and wants to sing like that, and knows that it's either not going to happen or it's going to be a difficult road to get back to it. And it's just this fascinating thing where, like, you almost don't want to have sympathy for her, because you want to say, like, what, you still sound better than everybody else. What are you complaining about? Like, I'd kill to sound like this. But that's not her journey. That's not what she's going through. She's going through knowing what she sounded like and wanting to sound like that again. And I just found it really fascinating and beautiful. You know, this song is on an album, the song that she's recording, and the movie resolves with her not really liking it. She's not super happy with what they have, and she has this moment of loving that she got to sing and feeling like she got in the groove again, but we're not left with like, and then she found her voice and put out these 5 songs, so go buy the Love Again soundtrack. It's very much like this is not a everything's going to be okay thing. We're just starting on the journey back.
And I think that was in many ways the purpose of the documentary. And I feel like, in a lot of ways, it felt like a half an hour documentary that took 90 minutes, but not in a way where I felt any of it was like dull or needless. It felt like a lot of it was drawn out to be wrapping around the extended sequence of seeing the stroke and seeing the reality of what this is. And this was meant to be a palatable introduction and real examination of what this experience is like for her. And I really appreciated it for that. And I think part of where it had a light touch in so many places is where it wasn't able to dive too deep into the psychology of this. And I think something we were talking about earlier that speaks to the psychology of this as well is how many of her songs are covers, because so much of what she is as an artist is her voice. And they talk a little bit about that without going too deep, without making it too heavy, but that is part of what she's going through here. So yeah, exactly what you're saying. We think she still sounds better than so many people, but she grades herself so harshly. I appreciated that there was somewhat of a positive note of, you could, like you said, you could see her starting to feel more comfortable and hearing that she was starting to really nail it. And she just needed to continue working, and that, this will be an ongoing struggle. And I think that is the point of the ending being open-ended. The fact that, that is her life. And, for so many people, it's even more of a struggle.
At about 50 minutes, she's up there performing all by myself, and she just slays that note, and it's so good. It is so powerful. And part of what winds up happening is that she cracks right afterward. And because of that, you can just really see her devastation. The audience continues clapping for her the entire time, but it is a real moment of reckoning where she just truly, I'm not judging. This is not that. I'm talking about from her perspective. She failed on stage, and she let them memorialize it and share it. And that's a powerful moment from a person who is the 6th best-selling female artist of all time. Ooh, try again for me.
I want to go back to something that Kevo mentioned, which is just the fact that this is a long documentary, and I don't know if I felt like when I saw the title, I Am Celine Dion, at a certain point while watching the movie, I sort of thought like maybe I Am should be a series and these should be more like 60 minutes. I don't know. There was a point at which, again, I felt like this is not something I blame Celine for, but I really do have questions for the director. What was the goal here? What were you hoping to achieve? I feel like the fact that we had the last 20 minutes of this film, it's so important, but it feels like that was kind of more of a gift to the director than it was a master plan. I don't know.
I really get it. I think it's a really complicated thing to come together around a documentary, because a documentary is real life or it's not, and we're not trying to grade the honesty of it, because this was a very honest documentary. It's just an honest documentary about a topic that's sort of always going to be a little bit untrue. The way we present famous people is always going to be a little different than than even the best thing we hope to present, because it's only ever going to be single moments. And we got an hour and 40 moments to pull together an entire documentary from. And that's really tough when this is somebody who, to my knowledge, has never had a long form multi-hour documentary before.
And thank you for reminding me, because something you said kicked this in my head. When we go to the archive and she's showing off outfits, she shows off the yellow number with the jacket, and she talks about how it was kind of just like taped together for the moment. It really was just like they barely got it where it needed to be to get her on stage. And she says like, but we gave you that moment of magic. And that actually, to me, it was another like thesis of Celine's that I felt like this might actually be the thing that she kind of got, but it was so subtle throughout that I don't feel like I don't know how I feel about it as a part of the movie. But like the whole thing is she is a sorceress. Like Celine gives us this magic. She will give you a moment. And I really thought about it in terms of like a lot of the drag coverage that we do, because again, these are artists who put together a look that is not designed to be taken off and put back on whenever you want to do it. Some of them literally can only be worn once because they are barely held together as they are. And then we're not going to do it again because that was one moment. I went on stage that one time and I did that incredible number, and I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to make my money off of repeating that number. Sometimes queens have repeat numbers, but a lot of times it's about, I wanted to give you that one magic moment that cannot be recreated. And that magic often has a lot of stuff that you don't ever see. And that has to be okay, because you didn't sign up for being a part of my life and being a part of behind the scenes. You signed up to come to my show. You bought a ticket for the show. So I'm going to give you the best possible show. This documentary was kind of the one time where she was like, I will allow you to peek behind the curtain. And on the one hand, I really loved that. And I really felt that was a privilege and really beautiful. But then I was also really struck by how much of that magic there is to her career, that like if you just see it from the camera or just see it from the outside, it is the most glorious moment, and you would never know all the stuff that you would not think made it not particularly glorious if you saw all the stuff that needed to happen to give you that one moment.
Yeah, you know, when she shows that the jackets are actually just connected to the sleeves, and that the shirts just build in, that she's not actually wearing whole outfits in places so that she can stay cooler. I thought that was a really interesting peek behind the curtain. So, you know, overall, I would love to get what everybody thinks of the documentary and, give the people kind of a grade. I think as a documentary, I can't really give it better than like a C. I don't think it actually docked any umentary, but I think as a peek into super cool Celine Dion, if this had been like a Diane Sawyer interview, A-, B+. It just didn't really fit the documentary bar.
I really, really, really love that statement, though, specifically Diane Sawyer or a classic Barbara Walters 2020. This feels like what would have been the 2020 special about Celine Dion having stiff person syndrome. Very competently handled, very politely, nothing necessarily excessively puff piecey, but nothing too stern or hard a look at her life, so much as just giving an idea of the struggle that she's going through right now. I would not say, like we've been saying, that this is a proper documentary about her life as a whole, but yeah, as what she's been going through, what she wants to share about it, and what to expect kind of for her going forward. I grade it very positively.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page here. I just, as a documentary, it doesn't quite hit. I give Celine Dion an A. Like, I give her life an A, and her her honesty and her willingness to be a part of this. She is not credited as a producer or anything, and I think that's probably how it has to be in order to call it a documentary. But it really did feel like she produced this. Like, it really did feel like a lot of this wouldn't happen if she didn't allow you into her life. You wouldn't see her without makeup unless she made the choice to be seen without makeup. You wouldn't have gotten the last 20 minutes of the film where she has a seizure with her stiff person syndrome. Probably there was, specifically a contract that had to be signed wherein she agreed to allow them to film that if it happened, or maybe, agreed to have veto rights if it happened and she didn't want it to be shown. So I really give her an A for giving access. And I give the crew an A for using those moments and finding what we needed to see, what the audience needed to see from those moments. It's everything else where I just really don't think they found the other stuff that we needed to see. I was saying to Nico, I felt like this maybe needed actually 10 or 20 minutes of Terrell, Celine's physical therapist, who is the person leading her through having the seizure, which is probably terrifying for you if you are a very high-end, expensive physical therapist for rich people, and one of your rich clients has a life-threatening crisis on your table. Like, that might have been a direction where I would have gone in. So I felt like, as far as that stuff goes, a little bit of a miss as a documentary. If you love Celine, or feel like maybe you ought to love Celine or need to know more, I feel like this is, if not an essential watch, a really good one.
And we've had this really interesting rush of lady docs in the last couple of months. There's a Diane von Furstenberg documentary over on Hulu that I can't wait to check out. There was the Janet Jackson multi-parter over on Lifetime in the last 2 years. And of course, who can forget, like 10 years ago when Mariah Carey had that E series. But
Demi Lovato hunted ghosts.
Yeah, for real. And I think maybe Kesha punched zombies. But the thing that this really made me think about was, how much do we project Celine Dion onto Celine Dion, and how much does Celine Dion sort of play back into that role? Something I did not realize about her was that she is actually, so maybe people might not realize this, but that song, I'm a Scat Man, by Scatman John, it's evidently actually about Celine Dion, who cannot stop scatting all over the bee-boo-dop-dop place. And I found that really interesting, because it seems like Celine Dion is usually doing some sort of Victoria Scone, lesbian, gay man send-up of Freddie Mercury at any given time. And she's always having this like great time doing like all of this like crazy manic stuff. And when I first heard that Celine Dion had a disease that made it hard for her to move, I don't know that I maybe made the joke, but I think at some point it crossed my mind that I'm like, oh, when we think of performers like this, we think of people who just stand still anyway. But like, that might be an Adele thing, but that's not a Celine Dion thing. Celine Dion is clearly a gymnast at times on the stage. And this was an interesting thing to make me think about, where when I think about her, I think about, you're here, there's nothing I feel. Like, it's just that slow motion kind of movement. But it really does turn out that she's just Canadian Simone Biles. And I wonder how much we make her the old non-mobile lady by society telling us she's an old non-mobile lady. And how much, wow, were we wrong? And she is a person who gives herself completely on stage every time.
Well, I think it's one of those things too, where like when you are, I don't think we think of any of the great belters as moving. We see the power of a pose when you belt, and the hands go up and you sing, or you do a superhero pose and you sing. But unless you are in the Madonna, Britney, Christina ilk, where dance is part of it, or even like a Beyonce, I don't. Mariah got to a point, and it was before 2000, where it was like she's not moving anymore, and it's not because she couldn't. It was because she wanted to be a Barbara. Barbara doesn't move, but Barbara moves. Like, that's the thing. It's like we think about it as static because it is one woman standing up there projecting out to you. But you don't think about all the ways in which there is actually so much physicality to it. And also, you don't think about how much actually physicality there is when you have to sing like that. Like, you don't realize it's stiff person syndrome. So she can just. I do. Well, right, of course you do, but and so I think one of the this was kind of the missed opportunity of, like, they do show that she's clearly a dancer of some kind. They show places in which she is, in dance clothes, warming up, putting on like ballet slippers. Early in her career, not presently, but like they show a lot of stuff that indicates that she moves, and then they show her moving in the show, but they sort of never put the two together, and they also never really get into how physical just singing is when you sing at this level.
It's acrobatic.
Yeah.
And it takes so much of your body to sing from your diaphragm like that. And like, she even talks about it for one moment, head voice versus, full voice. And, whether you're a projection singer or not, like, because there's plenty of people who are like, I'm not going to blow my voice out like that. I'll never belt that big. I'll never sing that loud. And like, yeah, that's totally a fair way to sing. But like, there's that eating the mic, there's that eating the world way to sing that it like literally summons from your fingertips. Like it's a magic that like you get to do that's so special. And there's something about the way a Celine Dion sings that's so incredible. And if I can just have like 1 minute to be a dick, but like when you sing really well, you make every note sound like the best note you can sing. You make it sound like the highest note you can sing the most powerfully. And the trick is to make it sound that way 4 and 5 songs in a row. And it doesn't always mean do your biggest, highest, most powerful note. It means always sing like something is. And, when I do Lady Marmalade on stage, the Christina, hey, 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 isn't even the highest note I do in the song. But it is the one I hit with the most bravado. And at one point, Celine said, I'm Celine Dion. I'm famous. I sing all by myself. The biggest, highest note in the world. And it's not even the highest fucking note she sings in the show. But it's not even as high as she does in her warm-ups. But there's something about understanding how to make everything sound like Broadway, like art. I just think she reminded me that you can be an actor with just your voice. And I just thought she was marvelous in this. The caricature of the young woman who first burst onto this scene, internationally at least, in Eurovision for 1988, Switzerland, ne pas sans moi. God, I'm so sorry. French people everywhere, just throw a fucking baguette at me, right? Ugly American in the building.
They're forgiven.
So also I want to say another thing, just side note, TK, how many albums does Tori Amos have?
Are we at 18 now?
It's somewhere around there. Now, what if I said to you, you should include all of the live albums? How many albums does Tori Amos have now?
Oh, then we're talking about 3 to 5 times that?
Easily, yeah. Celine Dion's the same. She has properly, like, English-speaking standard non-holiday albums, like 5, 7. But if you add in all of the beautiful French language albums from her time as a Canadian, it's like plus holiday albums, it's like 25.
Yeah.
And then there's like 7 live albums. There's 18 compilations. There's 25 box sets. Altogether, she has something like 80 records. You know, if you're gonna be number 6 best-selling female artist of all time, it does help to have 80 fucking records. That's 80 more records than I have, and a whole lot more female to get on that list. So,
and she really, I think, invented, maybe not invented, but standardized and made popular the residency, the Vegas residency.
1,000%. Can't not have put a better way to say that. Yep.
I distinctly remember. I live in Maine, as many of you know, right on the border with Quebec, and so there are a lot of Quebecois people in Maine, and we had a cleaning lady growing up who was Quebecois and loved nothing more than Celine Dion. Just absolutely, her whole life was Celine Dion, and
but Dorota loved you.
Yes, yeah, exactly. The great Gossip Girl reference. And for I want to say maybe her 50th birthday, or as a gift at one point, we got her tickets to the Vegas residency. But this has to have been in like 99. It was early. I mean, it was so early in when the residency had started, early 2000s maybe. It was so early on, and I had never heard of anybody doing that. I had never heard of a thing where you go to where the artist is.
It was still barely a residency. It was a visidency.
I hate that joke, but I love you very much. And now everybody does it. You know, Lady Gaga is just finishing
Everybody loves and hates me. I get it.
Lady Gaga is just finishing one up. Katy Perry had one. Britney Spears had one for such a long time. But for me, like, the first time I ever remember hearing about this and thinking about it was Celine Dion.
Oh my gosh. And I was thinking until you said Celine Dion, lame male mentors that held them down. Because, you know, one of the things that this movie chose to do very deftly was fly past 2 things. And they actually both have to do with angels. Number 1, and anybody who knows me sees where this joke is going. Number 1, we skirted the fact that, you know, Renee Angelil was occasionally questioned about how young he discovered Celine Dion, and it was just not a point of discussion here, and there's no reason for it to be in a point of discussion about how this woman lives at 56 years old, a beautiful, incredible multimillionaire who supports an industry. Number 2, my goodness, I could not help but notice there was absolutely no reference to I Am Your Angel featuring R. Kelly. It just, it didn't make it. Also, well, just, there were no famous friends.
That was something TK mentioned. He would have been interested to see something from the physical therapist. There wasn't really anything from anyone else. This was all Celine. This is I Am Celine. This was her. That was part of what made it less a documentary and more a statement from Celine Dion herself. That it was, I felt like it was all very curated. That's why I felt like that moment where she had her attack. I really appreciated them including the moment of the documentarians asking, do you want us to clear the cameras out of here? And her kind of confirming, I'm okay. She wanted to include this moment. This is the statement she is trying to make.
You know, if she is the Martha Stewart in this relationship, I would love it if her Snoop Dogg was like Brent Everett or something. Like, if it was just somebody so unfathomable, what is he doing here? Because you know who I wasn't going to reference now. But the other thing about it that's so terrific, that not having other famous people in here, my first thought was when they were talking about, and I forget his name, I'm so sorry, the guy who does that beautiful Help that is the one that Tina also does, John Farnham, from Australia, who's not Colin Hay. It's the other guy. He clearly was a huge influence on her in this period of time, which I thought was beautiful. She would automatically overshadow him in his own documentary. So even though she and the brothers Gibb did some music together. I'm glad there were no Bee Gees, also because it would have taken a seance to get most of them. I was glad that there was no overt footage of Jim Steinman, the greatest songwriter of his era, just because that would have overshadowed it in some ways. Or like even a Barbara, who did Tell Him with Celine, which would later be featured later on after it was on Barbara's Duets album on Let's Talk About Love, which I guess...
Not a single archive reference to Divas Live.
Can I tell you how many Divas Live references I made watching this?
Of course, you have to.
I have this clear memory, right? There was a young lady who, when I was a teenager, was in love with me because I was gay, not because anything else. And I remember she would let me get away with anything. And so at her birthday, I would always be like, let's do karaoke or let's do something that involves singing because you let me do whatever I want. And I remember over singing Happy Birthday one time, like singing it way too hard, that way that people sing things too hard and everybody's like, fucking God, stop. And I feel like that moment of fucking God, stop, he's singing Happy Birthday too hard is every other singer on stage during Divas Live with Celine Dion, that entire special. So my aunt was so good to me and she let me watch that Divas Live on VHS that I recorded the night before like 18 times the next day staying at her house. And I am telling you, Celine Dion got on everybody's nerve in that way that the most talented person in the room is automatically going to get on your nerves. God help you if you're an ugly girl, but you know, everybody hates the prettiest girl way more. So it's important to remember. I've had a really great time. The only other thing I really want to talk about from is just a little bit more of the music artistry. One of the things we talk about a lot is when an artist can't get out of their own way and they kind of make the same album over and over again, or when an artist does too vast a departure. When Janet Jackson went from, on Rhythm Nation 1814, she has Some Day Is Tonight, which is a transition from Let's Wait a While on Control. So by the time she gets to Janet Period, and it's just overtly sexual, Anytime, Any Place, Throb, there's a transition and people were like, I'm not into it. Or they were, Velvet Rope is one of her best-selling records, but like ultimately trying to continue that I'm changed from who I was lost her an audience. But I actually feel like Celine Dion did navigate away from over-dramatic kind of Kevin Costner movie asshole standards and into this like fun, energetic, light place. Do I think she understands what's happening when her kids are playing video games? Not really. But do I think she has the fun wherewithal to hang? Trillion%. And that is something her music did. I got to be honest. I looked up, I drove all night because I thought about doing an arrangement of it. And at the last second, Ashes won. But I could not have told you that and all of the remixes that changed my life are from 2003. I would have thought that song was from 2015 because it sounds so modern and so good. She is just such a timeless artist. And, Teak, I'm so glad you put this on the table, man. This was this was the right discussion to get us talking more about documentarianism and keep pushing our discussions into music further.
Yes.
And I mean, I think we got to talk about the Queens when we can talk about the Queens.
And because I feel like in a lot of ways, there are fewer and fewer queens of a certain kind, and there's more of something else. And there's nothing wrong with that. But like every now and then when like somebody would come across, like, when India Arie and Alicia Keys came out vaguely the same time, and everybody was like, they're different shades of the beautiful world that Stevie Wonder has made for young artists. You sort of saw that idea that, oh, wow, they're reminding people of a time that's gone. And then, that whole generation of neo-soul women with Angie Stone and Jill Scott. And you would even get people in there like, Music Soul Child. Of course, that's the era that gave us the Roots. That whole era, that whole movement, I guess that was birthed by Miseducation, was a response to wanting something back. And I think these divas, Celine, Madonna, Janet, Barbara, Cher, Mimi, Gaga, Ari, like all of these divas are of a certain breed, a certain pedigree of performer, of artist, these women really do kind of call back to a time where like Marilyn looked cute just taking her glove off. That was all she really had to do. And that's maybe what I love the most about all the women I just named. They can stand on a stage, or they can dance, or they can just tell some jokes. But the thing about them is they always command your attention. And the divas really, that's certainly why I picked up a guitar. So anyway, anybody got anything else about Canada?
Well,
Celine Dion, Poutine.
and there's that moment where she references sort of what you're talking about in the documentary, where she talks about, when she's in the giant wardrobe, but she's talking about how back in the day, like, you had 3 dresses, 2 pairs of shoes, a pair of gloves, and, she is still from an era of performer and person where it was just such a different time when she was growing up, and literal living legend. So yeah, this was really fun. I've always loved and appreciated her. I've always found her very funny and kooky. I wish she would act more. I think she's very funny whenever I've seen her do anything. She appeared on The Nanny as herself. She has such a great sense of humor and life and energy. That bit where they were talking about an episode of Friends, and she was going back and forth with one of her
I
staff.
love Phoebe for being a cool rocker.
Oh my god, yeah, I envy those people. Like, and she turns everything to a conversation about art, not in a way where, like, for some people it's self-obsessed. It's just it's what she loves and what she loves to talk about. That's all. So yeah.
One last thing I do just have to point out, that song at the end that she is recording is called Love Again for the soundtrack, Love Again, to the movie Love Again.
Love Again, yeah.
Do you know who wrote that song?
Love Again?
Yes! Miss Love Again. No, Dan Wilson, lead singer of Semisonic, writer of Closing Time.
No, writer of half of Adele's catalog. When
Yeah.
he's successful, he gives away the rights to his other songs because Adele pays the bills.
Yeah.
That's amazing because I guessed that it would have been like I guess that Ryan Tedder wrote Ashes because it's just got that vibe. I had not realized that. That's such a nice touch. But then, okay, I also want to ask you another question, though, about the music sort of featured here or not featured here. I thought opening this with, Bizet was kind of an eye roll, and then to see that it was her singing Carmen at the end was lovely. But I don't know. Why did we open on Carmen? That was just a choice where I was a little,
and immediately was a choice. Yeah.
I feel like it was to put her in an ilk with classics and to be like, she is this diva, this character. But no, let's pick a good Celine Dion song and do that instead. Like I was telling Nico, there's this fantastic remix of I'm Alive that's a mashup with Earth, Wind, and Fire that became a TikTok sound, and then like the guy who made it actually fully produced the whole song. It's now on Spotify, like under Celine Dion. Like it's this kid who just like made this random clip is now going to be very wealthy. But like I thought that would have been a great way to start. I mean, I would have even started with Because You Love Me, because like it's it was a weird choice, and again, like it just kind of speaks to documentary. I hardly know it. Like I don't know quite what we're doing here.
Speaking of choices and non-documentaries and stories about Celine's life, Mark asked earlier, is there anyone that you think would play Celine Dion in a biopic about her life? I mean, she's such an amazing figure. I feel like she's someone who we might see a story about someday. Hopefully a really positive one, because she is so amazing.
I'm gonna get booed.
Who?
I don't care. I think she is so talented. I would put Anne Hathaway in the role. I think she has unbelievable range. She has an incredible voice. She is a classically trained singer. She has the ability to mimic accents, at least where I have to say, wait, is she no? Okay, no. So like I feel like she could pull this off.
For me, it's going to be an unknown Quebecois girl.
Lemon.
What's that?
Lemon.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be
Rapstress.
a queen from Canada's Drag Race. Yeah, no, I just feel like I really would not want to see Anne Hathaway attempt to do this accent. I think there is some amazing Quebecois ingenue who is going to do this, and then she will be cast as Jean-Marie Bobier in the Alpha Flight movie that will definitely have to come out, and it's just going to be great. I love this for this hypothetical human that definitely could exist.
And that's
Go ahead.
sorry, please. And that's like the thing. You want to see whoever represents Celine go on to do more. Like you want to see it be a legacy of excellence.
You do want to see it be a legacy of excellence, and you want to see it be someone who is sort of a name and somebody who you might recognize from something. The kind of person that has like the dramatic talent and range, and not only that, but hopefully someone who is also a Canadian to really, really capture the essence of Celine Dion, which is why I really think that it would be amazing to see the incomparable mozzarella pizza
Stick.
Celine Dion. I checked. Vanessa Lengies is Canadian. I just think she looks like her. I think she could do a good impression of her. I don't know if she would really do a good, wonderful biopic justice, but like a lifetime level inspiring biopic life story about Celine Dion. Yeah, I think, thank you, Jonah. I think Vanessa Lengies, I really mean that positively too. I love her as an actor, and she's good in other things as an actual positive actor and not just this caricature. So, yeah, I'm going for it.
Keva was afraid I was going to hate her character on Glee, and I think she's the best part of the whole show. I think
Nico has proven when it comes to soap operas, and we think he is going to zig, he zags. So we can never predict.
Dr. Shepard is the best part of Grey's Anatomy by far. That's
what we're dealing with right now.
Oh, he's so hot and dreamy. Oh, that's.
You did it. You figured it out. Good job.
Okay. Anyway, I've had a great time talking about Celine Dion, the greatest singer in the world. I also really want to learn that amazing dance move she has. Like, it is. She, like,
sorcery.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and she is the Holy Spirit. Yeah! It is so hot. No, I realize that I really love her. I really think she's incredible. If anything, I think sometimes she's right that her voice did all of the carrying. I don't think that, in saying how much I love that Celine Dion's sound changed over the years, I wonder which years were her. Because it sounds like the deep thing inside of her soul that she never gets out is this love of scatting and like creepy, and people are going to know exactly what I mean, but like creepy speakeasy Russian jazz, French jazz. I swear, people know what I mean. I mean like Mr. Zebra by Tori Amos, but in French. That seems to be the sound in Celine Dion's soul. You said it, TK, but I'm sure you're right. I feel like genuinely Tori and Celine would get along marvelously better than Tori Amos would get along with PJ Harvey or Alanis or Bjork. Although these days, Alanis Morissette is just one goddamn dance hit away from being a Studio 54 mainstay. I can't even talk about how she has just become a dance artist.
Bless.
Oh, you're not with me on this. Okay. Well,
I know. We are. We are an
sugar.
hour and 15 minutes, and if we start this discussion, it's a whole second episode. So I'm keeping my mouth shut for the sake of brevity and keeping it cute. But you and I do occasionally speak offline, and I will relay my thoughts to you there, where we can develop this into another episode. Hypothetically, what pop stars that we love would be friends, and who wouldn't get along?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's a great episode. I'm the parasocial of that. Parasocial is my favorite old-timey lawyer TV show. So let's get me away. I'm a danger to myself. Okay, Kevo, until we find the 6th episode of Rap Battle, what's going on with you? Where can we find you? What's going down?
You can find me over on the socials at Kev O'Reilly. That's KEVOREALLY. Doing all the fun things that we do. T, what about you? Where can everyone
You
find
can
you?
find me at TK Elemental. Nico, where can everybody find you?
You guys can find me dropping my very excited to be in this universe, very new day has come kind of vibe, tracks from this episode tomorrow over on my SoundCloud. I'm going to be doing a little Celine Dion EP. It's going to be If You Ask Me To, Ashes, and It's All Coming Back to Me Now. Might be 2 versions of the last one, a remix and a straight one. We'll see what happens. It could get exciting. But that'll be at Nico Action Music. That's NICOACTIONMUSIC. If you want to see the rest of me, you can check that out at Nico Action. That's NICOACTION. I cannot wait to get out of this ring light. There's 3 things you guys can do for me to help me protect my retinas. Number 1, you guys can like, comment, and subscribe. Gosh, I love those 3 things. But there's 3 things I love even more, and that's if you guys would take care of yourselves, and also these 2. So the 3 things you can do to take care of yourself is sort of a sub-entry. Number 1, stay safe, spooky, scary world. Number 2, be brave, because you gotta stay you. Celine would want it. But number 3, I want you guys to evolve daily, because who you were yesterday, amazing. Who you are today, incredible. But who you are tomorrow, that's the dream. And just like Celine, we can't wait to see it. So until then, we'll see you.